Man, I am so glad to have a chance to chat with one of my favorite folks on our staff team here at Impact 580, Christie J. Rice. She is coming to us and she
Hello.
is brand new on staff. Christie, so glad that you're here having time to chat with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. So happy to be here.
And Christie is so busy. She does so many great things, and we're about to jump into all of that. Her official title with us at Impact 580 is she is the creative media pastor.
Mhm.
Um, a more important title that she has is Christie J. Rice, married to Josh Rice, our worship
Mm.
pastor. And one of the most important titles she has is Mama to Jasper and Jovi. And I just want to say before we get too far into it, I'm just really excited that you're on the team and you do
Mhm.
such a fantastic job just living and pointing people to Jesus. And I know we're going to get into that here in just a minute. I thank you for making time. I know it's been kind of a nutty day and nutty season, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate you making time, Christie. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, first question. What would you like everyone to know about you?
So many things, but we don't have time. So I'll just really narrow it down. I think the most important thing is that I'm so glad that Jesus loves me. I really need him to love me. I love Impact 580. I love Impact 580. The building is fine. I mean, it's gray and white and black. Congratulations. But I love the people. I love the people and the families. And I can't imagine serving anywhere else. I can't imagine coming to Impact 580 and not serving and not getting to use my gifts. I'm so thankful that I get to be creative and serve in my creative capacity and get to love on all these people here. I love it. I'm a 7 and a 2. So I enthusiastically love to help people if you know anything about the Enneagram. And I'm basically just pumped all the time. It's
Absolutely.
exhausting and wonderful, but I love Impact 580. I'm so honored and thankful to get to be here and serve these families.
That's so great. I mean, I know all that. I know all that to be very true about you. I also know that you have another job. What is another job that you do?
I'm also the owner and operator of CJ Studios, which is photography. I shoot seniors and I shoot births, and I know that seems like they're completely different things, but actually to me, it's all one big circle of life. I love being there for the mamas. I love watching these babies grow up. I love telling those stories, the stories of the graduating senior, especially this year. Holy moly. The stories of the mamas seeing their babies for the first time and these babies taking their first breath. I could go on, but I love getting to work with my clients, and it's a big part of who I am and what I do. So I'm thankful that I can do photography still and shoot at CJ Studio still and do this creative media pastor position. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how long have you had CJ Studios?
CJ Studios has been an official business for about 3 years. I've been shooting for 10 or 12, but it was a lot of those first years were like, hey, I have a camera. Hey, I have Photoshop. Well, let's do this. And really the last 3 to 4 years, I really refined it. I've become an actual business. I pay taxes and everything. And it hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. So I've been shooting a long time, but professionally, business wise, it's been about 3 or 4 years. It's been really serious.
Is that something you did at all or had an interest in when you were a kid or no?
Not even at all. I've always been creative. My mom is an art teacher, so there were always crayons and markers and fresh paper, and she was always asking us to look for details and things. So art has been around and creativity has been around forever. But I mean, I didn't even think, like, if you would have asked me in high school, I would not have said, "Oh, I'm going to be a photographer." I would not have said that. I would have said counselor or something like that. But I'm so glad it went down the road that it did. I can't imagine doing anything else now. I can't imagine what would I even do. I don't know.
Yeah.
So photographer is great. Creative media pastor is great. Yes.
Well, and that's leaning into all of your 7 gifts and then all of your two
Mhm.
gifts at the same time. So that's a cool thing. I also know that when I first met you, the first time I saw you was on stage at Impact 580 because you were also part of the worship team. So,
Mhm.
um, how long have you been singing?
You want? Is it weird to say your whole life? I feel like, again, like, music is just something that's always been around. When I was third grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade at First Baptist Church in Duncan, which is a wonderful, beautiful church full of wonderful people. Jerry Gregston was the kids choir director, and I did choir, and they would do productions, like full on productions where you would sing and dance and have lines to memorize. And there was this one program we did. I can't remember the name of the program, but I was Candy Cane Jane. It was adorable. It was adorable, and I loved it, and Jerry goes to Impact 580 now, so it's talk about circle of life, like, seeing him out there in the congregation worshiping while I'm leading worship, I can't help but think of all those times in that choir room at First Baptist Church singing and singing and singing, and he made it fun. Singing was so fun. It didn't feel like it was work, it just felt like it was fun, and I feel like that's something that really shaped how I lead worship and how I feel about music. It was just fun. It's fun.
That's really cool. So
Yeah.
you were in a kids choir at church with Jerry. What stepping the way back for a second, what's the first song that you were, I know you said you sang for your whole life. What's the first song you remember singing?
The first song I remember, like, there's a song about Hermie the Wormy that comes to mind. And certainly all the songs from Candy Cane Jane. The first worship song I really remember singing, I had a girl band. We'd had like one great performance of one song. I can't remember the song that we sang. I remember being on stage. I remember singing. I remember I was playing the keyboard. I remember it was a worship song, but I don't remember what the name of it was. But when I think about the first song, I think about that song. I need to call up my band members and be like, guys, what was that song? What were those words? But
That's
I
awesome.
have a really clear memory of being on stage with my friends. I can't remember what the actual song was though.
Well,
But
that
oh my gosh, singing all the hymns too. I mean, First Baptist Church. I mean, there's a song called Majesty and the Baptist hymnal, like that comes to mind. It was big and grand. It was one of my favorites. All of those hymns. So a lot of my singing was around Jesus stuff.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you have any siblings?
I have an older sister who is the best older sister that anybody could possibly have. She was like immediately was like the mama, like I just remember my mom being gone and she would be in charge and I would like want to climb on the cabinets to get snacks and she would come and like pull me off the cabinets, like full body slam. No, you're gonna hurt yourself. So very protective, very loving, so much compassion. I again, because of the seven, I could go on and on about how great she is. But she has two little girls. So I have two nieces. I have two boys and I have two nieces. And so we have like this great little thing going for us with the boys and the girls. And I don't know what I would do without her. She is my sounding board and she's so wise and she gives me hugs, but I need a hug. She's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, she's pretty fantastic. I mean, I already knew the answer to that question, but I still wanted to ask it. And she serves at Impact, and I think that's a really
Hmm.
cool part of your story. I mean, you get a chance to serve right alongside with your husband and
Hmm.
with your sister and with your mom and your dad, and like that's just not everybody has that story. So when you think about that story, like that's part, like that's your life, getting to serve, not just do stuff but getting to serve with them as something that means so much to you as the church, and as you already said, as Impact 580 means to you. Just tell us a little bit about how you feel about that.
I feel like it really shows my parents' legacy because they're not perfect people and they weren't perfect parents, but Christ was always the center of our home. Always. It was always Jesus. It was always serving and not just we're going to go to church every Sunday, but it was how can we help those around us? So it just seems like a natural flow that we would all end up in the same church again. And now our grandbabies the grandbabies are here and my dad is host team. I mean, if you come at all, he's that guy that's always happy to see you. Larry's always happy to see you. My mom is loving, compassionate. She's praying for people. She's helping lead their life group. My sister is serving, of course. She serves in the baby. She's the first grade teacher, but she serves like in the toddler room and she loves it. So it feels like, again, how many times can I say circle of life? Is that too many times to reference Disney? I don't know.
No,
I
but
just feel like I hope it gives me some hope that like if I'm raising my boys the way my parents raised me, that we'll see the same thing. And maybe we won't all end up at the same church when they're in their 20s and 30s, but I think what my parents did and how they trusted God with my life, my sister's life, I think it's just showing now they're reaping the rewards. Like now we get to all serve together in the same church, and it doesn't happen hardly ever. And incredibly thankful is how I'm feeling. Incredibly thankful and incredibly hopeful that maybe we're on the same path and that legacy will continue.
I love that. And just hearing you talk about your boys and then them being able not only to attend, but one day soon be able to serve with pops and grand,
Mhm.
like that is fantastic. Like, I mean, I used to say rock and roll. Like that is super rock and roll. Like that's one of the coolest things. And I love that that's part of your story. I
Mhm.
know that you certainly this goes along with your CJ Studios business, but I know that you love stories. And what
Hmm.
is it about stories that really appeals to you, not only as a photographer, yes, and not only as a worship leader, yes, but and certainly as a creative media pastor, but what is it about stories that you love, whether it's your 7 or your 2 or whatever? What do you love about stories and being able to tell other people's stories?
I feel like stories are so powerful because there's always more going on. There's always more going on in our life. And I mean, not right now, it's not very fast paced because of everything we're going through with COVID at the time. But life just seems to go so fast. And we only get really the tip of the iceberg of everybody we meet in every situation. But there's so much more. There's so much more. And I feel like it's so magical to reach in and learn that whole story and then get to tell that whole story.
Mm.
And it changes your perspective of the person and it changes your perspective of the situation. I mean, think about Wizard of Oz and, the evil witch. I mean, don't like the Wicked Witch of the West. And, she's so bad and evil. But then there's this book out called Wicked. And now there's this musical called Wicked. And you get to hear the Wicked Witch's side of the story. And now you go back and watch Wizard of Oz and it's like, oh no, the house landed on my friend. Like it changes how you feel about people when you know their story. And God, like I wish we could have, I want to have time to listen to every single person's story, and there's not that time. But I'm so thankful that my job allows me to tell the stories of the seniors and of the moms and of the babies because they're powerful. I mean, it changes perspectives. You don't know. You don't know until you stop and ask because you never know what's going on behind, 5, 6 years. Like the stories build up so much, and you get to meet that one person that one time. You just never know. So it's magical. It's powerful.
I totally agree with that. And I think you do, especially my first my first conversation with you was about discipleship. We'll talk about that in a sec. But
Hmm.
my the other first thing I knew about you was not that you were leading worship, but you were the one who's taking the pictures of everybody who was getting baptized and being able to
Yeah.
tell those stories and the way that you and your team have been capturing
Hmm.
pictures for over 3 years now at Impact. I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's a huge thing, and what a great story to be able to tell. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that, and I love knowing you and knowing your passion for Jesus, and then someone else's story, being able to capture that and then tell that story. I mean, again, it fits with
Mhm.
everything that seems to be going on right for you right now in your life, and that's great.
Mhm.
Um, okay, tell us about. I know that your history with Jesus is very important to you. Like I said, that was the first thing we ever talked about, really. So, tell us a little bit about your story and your history with Jesus.
So, like I said earlier, my mom and dad, we were raised in church. Jesus was a lot of our conversation, not just on Sunday mornings, but through the week. So, I met Jesus really, really early on. I guess I should say Jesus met me when I was 7. I was at a vacation Bible school, and the pastor told the story about how we're separated from God because of sin, but how Jesus wants us to be friends with God, and He came down and He paid the price, and now we can be friends with God. And I was like, well, this is fantastic. And so I went home to my mom and I said, oh, mom, are there really people in hell? And she was said, oh, we'll talk about that later. Like I was, and then like my dad got out his big Bible and he was laying on the bed. And I don't know what happened, but we ended up at the pastor's house. And the pastor talked me through it again. And I was like, well, this for sure, we got to do this. He's like, do you want to pray this prayer? I was like, I absolutely want to pray this prayer. Like, let's go. And so we prayed, and my sister was there, and she prayed the same night. So God was working in us at the same time, and we got baptized at the same time. Like she went down first in the
Wow.
big robe, you know what I mean? And you float down in the water because back then you wore like giant terry cloth robes on a little 7-year-old body, and it's magical and perfect. And since then, I mean, there was never a time. I remember being 4 years old, sitting in Sunday school class with my dad because he was like volunteering. Even back then, he was volunteering in the 4-year-old class, and the teacher said, nobody loves you like God does. Your parents don't even love you as much as God does. And I looked up at my dad and said, is that true? And he looked down at me and said, yeah, it's true. And it just blew my mind that
Wow.
somebody could love me more than my dad. And I think that's just a testament to the kind of relationship he and I have. I can't imagine that. So my whole life, I've known that Jesus has loved me.
Mm.
There's never been a moment that I doubted that. And so I grew up and I went through middle school, and I finally in middle school was like, oh, I should read the Bible. Like I should read the Bible because I believe that it's true. So I should read it. And that started really the discipleship for me. I did get discipleship at Sunday school, of course. My parents were always there to answer questions and talk through stuff. But I think my own personal discipleship really started in middle school when I was reading the Bible and
Mm.
reading it, reading and rereading it. And now it's just, I want everybody to read the Bible. I love the Bible. Speaking of stories, did you know there's this great story called the Bible, and it's true and it's awesome, and, and I just if I can get anybody's attention, it's like, you want to read the Bible? Do you want to read it? Because it's a great story and it's real and it's for you. And I think that really the whole story thing, I can see it playing out through my whole life because, man, talk about a story that's a real story. Like we're all supposed to be a part of this bigger story. And
Yeah.
I see that in the discipleship. So for me, discipleship is all about you got to read the story. Let's get you into the story. You got to hear it. It's so good.
Yeah, I love that. That makes total sense. I love that that all started for you when you were 7, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you got to experience all of those big wins with your sister and your dad and your mom. I mean, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So shifting gears now, that's all kind of been about your story. What does it mean for you to get to be part of someone else's story, not just show their story, but when you disciple someone, you talk a lot about your Jesus friends. And so when you get a chance to help connect someone not just with church but with Jesus, I mean, our whole mission here is to lead people to become fully devoted followers of Christ.
Right. Yeah.
To have that being a focus, like what does that mean to you as someone who's followed Christ for a very long time, but to be able to pour into someone else and have the honor of helping to lead them?
It fuels everything else. It fuels everything else, even photography, even things that are like seemingly unrelated to Jesus. Because I know now, because I've been walking with Jesus for so long, that there is really just one big story. And to see people see the story and get involved with the story, like I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. Like it pumps me up. It
Yeah.
pumps me up. The 7 in me is like losing its mind. I can't believe anytime somebody's like, "Oh, I've been reading the Bible and this makes sense," or "I saw this," and I'm like, yes, that's right, yes, okay, keep going, because there's room for everybody in the story.
Yeah.
And when you're fueled by Jesus and that is your foundation, and you're fueled by the excitement of the story, everything else becomes way more exciting. Everything else, like even the smallest things, becomes way more exciting. And to think that we can be part of this big story now, and there's a place for us in the story, and God is for us, and just pumps me up.
Yeah.
Pumps me up.
Absolutely. I love that. And that is exactly how you radiate that. I mean, whether we're having a conversation that we're recording or it's just, hey, guess what? I got to tell you this thing. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
so you. I love that. Um,
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. We've talked a lot about Jesus, talked a lot
Mm-hmm.
about you and being able to tell other people's stories. Let me ask you, I know you're super, super busy, so this may sound like a ridiculous question. But if you ever were to get some free time, what would you do? What would you do for fun in your free time?
I love, like, the funnest days for me are like the Saturdays, the slow days where me and Josh and the boys can go to the mountains and walk around, and then go to Target and walk around, and then go to Chili's and eat chips and queso, the queso with the cheese and the meat in it, and just hang out. They're so fun to hang out with, especially when we don't have an agenda and we're not rushed anywhere. They're just the greatest. If it's summertime is my favorite time because we can go swimming. Swimming, I love to swim. And like, listen, I'm not saying like I'm going to be on the swim team. I swim really fast. Give me the goggles. I'm ready to do laps. That's not the kind of swimming I do. My swimming is like, let's just wade in the pool and go underwater and blow bubbles and go down underwater and look at each other and wave. Like, to me, that's swimming. That's
Mm.
my favorite kind of swimming. And summer, I can't wait for summer and swimming. That's my favorite pastime. But you can't swim when it's January. So,
Very
seasonal things. But
yeah.
hanging out with my people, since I'm a 7, like, I love the people. Hanging out with my people is the greatest.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Well, that's so fantastic. So let me ask you this question. If you could spend the day or the afternoon, I know your family is super important to you, and I don't think that
Mhm.
this answer to this question would change any of that. So I'm going to take your family off the table for a sec. If you could
Okay.
spend the afternoon with any one of your heroes, living or not living, not your family. You love your family. You've represented that super well. Anyone outside of your family you could spend the afternoon with, who would it be and what would you do?
There's just so many people. I'm going to try to really narrow it down. So
Okay.
I'm watching Fixer Upper again. So Joanna Gaines is at the top because I feel like she's very creative. And I know that I'm pretty sure they follow Jesus. So I have so many questions. She's a great mama. So I'd love to talk with her about that. But also, I mean, it's got to be like Amy Poehler. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hang out with the funny girls. Kristen Wiig cracks me up. Maya Rudolph, like all these hilarious people. Lucille Ball, like give me like an hour with Lucille Ball. I'm fascinated. I thought she was incredibly smart. She's so funny. I love comedy and I love people that aren't afraid to look silly, to be funny. I think that's the greatest kind of comedy is when you're afraid not to look completely ridiculous and make people laugh. I think there's something really sweet about wanting to make people laugh. I feel like I'm kind of that way. So it's got to be like, so Joanna Gaines for the creativeness, but then like all those funny girls, like let's just go hang out and swim and see what sort of funny things they would do in a pool. Like I can't imagine all the things they would come up with to do.
That's such a
Yeah.
great answer. That'd be fantastic. Okay, now the home stretch here. The
Okay.
final Fast and Furious favorite five. I've got five things. They're all about your favorites, and they all start
Okay.
with the letter F. Okay, so
Perfect.
what's your favorite food to make?
If I'm going to make it,
Yeah.
it's going to be fettuccine Alfredo.
Okay.
Not because I'm super great at it, but like that's the thing that my people will eat, and it's really delicious. It's really delicious.
Okay. What's your favorite color right now?
Yellow,
Okay.
yellow, and then also blue because sometimes you don't like yellow doesn't match my skin tone, so I feel like I have to say blue sometimes too. You know, but
So
yellow, I mean yellow, yellow, yellow.
because yellow and blue make greens, but you don't want to go there, right?
Not yet. Just I love yellow and blue together.
Yellow and blue. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Fantastic. What's your favorite song right now?
Probably gonna go with Holy Water by We the Kingdom.
Mm.
It's got a good beat. It's a good jam. Sweet, sweet honey on my lips. I'm like, yes, I dig it. I dig like the kind of the harder, like the music drops out and there's just that beat. Ooh, it's good. Mm.
Fantastic. What is your favorite book or author to read right now?
Right now, it's gonna be Emily. I wrote her name down, Emily Lockhart, because she's a fantastic storyteller. She writes fiction. And the last book that I read of hers was Genuine Fraud, and it sounds really sketchy, but how she wrote that book is phenomenal. If you like to read, you got to go check out Genuine Fraud by Emily Lockhart. She's so clever and she's so incredibly intelligent in how she writes, but it's also like a really quick read. It's so good. Like I read her last book in a day. Like I could not stop reading it, and that's my favorite kind of author. Like I want to be able to pick up your book and not put it down,
Just
and that's her.
roll through till you're done, huh?
Yes, pure seven right there. Just like we're gonna read this book and we're gonna read it all.
Man, I hope the Enneagram folks get a chance to see some of this because you've done a really good job representing both of those numbers. Okay, the last one is freestyle. Like you get to tell us what's any other favorite thing that you want us to know about you. That's your favorite thing.
Oh, again, I feel like the list is so many. For sure, I already told you summer. Like everybody likes fall, but I'm like, give me summer. Snow cones. I want to eat all the snow cones. I feel like snow cones might be my love language. Like I think that might be a real thing because nothing makes me happier than a snow cone. Okay, there are several things, but like snow cones are it. I love historically accurate movies. Like Apollo 13. Could watch it all day, every day. We just watched Hidden Figures,
Hmm.
and I was like, I mean, I'm soaked in. I love those historically accurate movies. Mona Lisa Smile, another historically accurate. The events and the times. I think it's just, and it's all around the story. It's all around the story. I love
Yeah.
real stories. So that's a good freestyle one. What is it? Historically fiction. That's not how you say it, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Those type of movies. I love those based on true story movies.
So the
You can't beat it.
historical nonfiction accurate movies.
Yes.
Okay.
Like McFarlane USA. We saw that last year at the movies, and I was like so hooked. And so then when I would go for my runs, I would tell myself like, "Come on, you can do it!" Like and like the fifth guy comes across the finish line,
That's not
and I was
Danny
like,
Diaz. That's not Danny Diaz.
and I'm like running up the hill, and I'm like panting, and I'm like the coach is like, "That's not Christy Rice. That's not Christy Rice." And I'm like, "I can do it. I can do it. I'm number 5." And see, like real stories, they fuel everything.
That is so great. Christy, I can't tell you how much, I mean, honestly, again, how much I enjoy working with you and serving with you. I thank you for taking some time out to chat with us today and give everybody a chance to get to know you a little bit better. What's a great way for us to connect with you through the creative media pastor role, through CJ Studios, maybe your social media handle, your website, any of the places you want us to be able to go where we can connect with you and share stories?
My email at Impact for the Creative Media Pastoral is just Christie, CHRISTIE, at impact580.church. So if you're into photography and you're into storytelling and like everything I'm saying is kind of resonating with you, please email me. Like, let's get together. Like, tell me what you like. Tell me what you like to do. And let's find a role for you. I'm hoping we're going to have a lot more creative outlets for people to share what they can do and share it for Jesus. We have a YouTube channel now, and we're going to start populating that. Like, I feel like we have more options now
Mhm.
for those, the singers and the songwriters and the storytellers and the poems and the people who can paint. Like, I feel like we're going to open that up. So Christie, CHRISTIE, at impact580.church. And then CJ Studios, you can do that on Facebook. C, capital J, AE. J is my middle name. Studios. And then my Instagram handle is CJ Studios. And that's where like all my senior stuff is on that Instagram. And then there's a few other things on my Facebook page, but those are really the places that I'm at the most.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I appreciate it, Christy. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
5, 4. It was great, and I think it's going to be a great way for people to get to know you better. And you did.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially knowing the day that you had, or knowing what I know of the day that you had.
Yeah.
No one will be able to tell that from the conversation. And as soon as you started talking about your family and about everything, your face lit up again. So again, fantastic job. So now here's my question. I'm